Well, Terry Rooney is a big part of LSU baseball, whether you're talking about the past, whether you're talking about the present, or into the future with the players that they will recruit here. He joins us today on Jacques Talk. Coach, thanks for coming down.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Great to see you.
Great to be here. Great to be back. It's been a great year.
I was so excited when they brought this guy back, right? So the 2008 LSU baseball team was one of my favorite teams to cover. You came in with Coach Mainieri at a time where LSU was kind of at a wobbly time in their existence. They had missed the NCAA tournament, and you inherited a roster that had some talent, but top to bottom obviously needed some work. And 2008, you guys won 23 games in a row. I remember covering you and Cliff Godwin and all that. That was a lot of fun.
It was a special time. It really was. I think about it often that year, and really those 2 years. And I think whether it's you are a player, a coach involved in the program, or you are a fan of LSU baseball, I really feel like that was a special time. And it was a special time for me. And I think it was special because of really what transpired from 2007 into 2008, and obviously eventually into 2009, to see, I think, where we were and then where the program went, within a relatively short amount of time. In 2007, we didn't even make the SEC tournament. And I remember even from a recruiting standpoint, all the kind of the nuances, so to speak. I was the pitching coach and calling pitches, and about halfway through the season, I said, well, I think we need to prioritize and I need to get on the road. So I remember I missed a bunch of SEC weekends.
I do remember that, yeah.
And I didn't even do it. I didn't even go to the games. And then, obviously it led to, we were very fortunate that it led to the #1 recruiting class and we turned it around. So I look at, 07 to 08 as really a special time in what everybody was able to accomplish during that time frame, and really, I think, get LSU baseball back to where it belongs.
Yeah, I remember doing a story on you at the SEC baseball tournament. Some of the players were joking, this guy lives on Monster energy drinks, before Coach O made them even more famous. And both you and Cliff, you were known as these young guys who were relentless on the road, recruiters, didn't sleep, were living out of a suitcase.
Yep. Well, not much has changed, to be honest with you. In some ways, some has changed. I think the guys, if you talk to them on the team, so I'm still rolling on caffeine. There's no question about that. The Monsters, the Nasas, but it is. It was. It really. It was a great time there, and it was a special staff. And obviously, you talked about Cliff Godwin, who's doing an incredible job as the head coach at East Carolina, and one of my best friends. And those bonds and relationships, even for myself, personally, was great. But all of that is what made that such a special time. Where the players, the coaches, and then the turnaround, of the program. The
legendary coaches like Paul Mainieri, oftentimes they're only as successful. They got to surround themselves with good people. Whether you're a football coach, if you have a bad offensive coordinator or a bad defensive coordinator, you're going to sink. And so certainly he was able to identify talented young coaches like yourself.
Well, you look at it on that staff, as a matter of fact, in that year specifically, 08, I guess, because he had talk about the comparisons between then and now, but myself and Cliff Godwin, Will Davis, Javi Sanchez and myself, and went on to be a head coach. Cliff Godwin was obviously the head coach at East Carolina, and Will is doing a tremendous job. He's the head coach at Lamar. So we're really very fortunate to be a part of that. And you're right, you're surrounded by the people that make you successful. And I said this even when I came back here at my first interview with you in August, and that's one of the things you look at currently on this staff that Coach Johnson has put together. It's incredible. When I took this job and came back this summer, I was, really kind of in awe, in essence, from afar, of not knowing everybody quite personally, but getting an opportunity to be around everybody involved in this program. And this staff that Coach Johnson has put together is absolutely tremendous in their areas in which they do so well. They're the best of the best. That's how I look at it. Every person in this building is the best of the best. And obviously Coach Johnson is without question the best head coach in the country in college baseball. There is no disputing that. And you look at what he has done this year, that shows how valuable and just what he has done for the sport and what he's doing for LSU.
I've got plenty I want to talk to you about in the present, but I call this story time when I go back and start thinking about these old times. But that recruiting class that you put together, so 2007 really was kind of a rough year. Anytime a coach takes over for a previous coach, there's you're inheriting a lot of players who don't want to get on board, or maybe you have a hard time getting them on board. You have to grind through it. But then I remember doing a live shot with Coach Mainieri at the Old Box, think you opened the year against Southern, maybe.
Okay.
Or it was the first midweek game or something. And we looked out over the team, and Coach Maneri goes, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, it looks a lot better than last year." And he goes, "Not even comparable, you know." And so you had this redheaded kid named DJ LeMahieu out there. And then your Matt Clarks and a guy named Anthony Renato, right? And just really looking back, you were able, it was the perfect marriage between like your Blake Deans, Ryan Schimpfs, to the new players you recruited.
It was an incredible collection of not just talent and players, but personalities, kids. It was awesome. I mean, I tell you, and I go just even personally, to look back at that, I can't believe it was that long ago. And I think that's why that team was so special, the relationships and the bonds. And you're right. I mean, we're very fortunate. That was it was a great combination. I don't want to leave anybody out, but you're right. We had the nucleus of guys who stayed after 2007, who understood, what this program should be, could be, has been, and is going to be. Hey, you talk about the Jared Mitchells, the Blake Deans, the Ochinkos. I mean, all of those guys, Mike Hollander, Pontiff. I mean, it was just a collection of guys who loved it, and we knew that they were a part of the fabric, so to speak, of the program. And then we brought in the #1 recruiting class in the country. And fortunately, those guys ended up being pretty good. I mean, there's a lot of really great players. I looked at it actually a little while ago, and I think on that team, I think in the 2008, eventually there's I think it's about 20 players that played professional baseball, 6 to 7 major leaguers, on that. But yeah, when you go around and you look at those guys, that was quite a special class. I think we had 9 players that were drafted in that class that ended up coming to school, which is unheard of. So there's a lot of things that came to light, during that time. I think it was the efforts and the hard work of a lot of people that made that, but they understood, what this program was. And as you said, eventually that allowed that 2008 team to go to Omaha and the 2009 team as the catalyst, to win the national championship. But it was, what a great group of guys. It was special.
Gibby, Micah Gibbs, with the dry sense of humor, he spoke like that. Micah Gibbs. Did they send you a national championship ring? I would have.
They did send me a national championship ring. They did. Coach did. Really appreciative of that. They did. Yeah, they did. And I was always appreciative of that, And things happen for a reason, It's, in leaving.
You became a head coach, just to let people know.
I did, yeah. I went to became the head coach at UCF. And but obviously, I've always, in my time here was so important to me in so many ways, personally, professionally. And you alluded to Micah Gibbs, Gibby. Man, I remember it like it was yesterday. Everybody can tell the recruiting stories, but, I remember sitting here about, I think it was 12 o'clock, 1 a.m. at the University of South Alabama, and he was playing catcher, and I was like, we got to get this guy a switch-hitting catcher from Pflugerville, Texas, and he ended up coming, and now, obviously had an unbelievable career, played a bunch of years of pro ball working at Marucci, actually lives down the street from me,
Yeah.
So it's, and that's the thing you see in coming back here, just personally, and seeing a lot of those guys that you recruited and staying in contact with them. It's really the hopes as a coach that you have down the road, and very fortunate. That's what this place brings you.
So you boomerang back here. I mean, this guy's done everything. He's been a head coach. He's been a pitching coach. You pitched at Radford?
I did, yeah. Small D1 school in Southern Virginia. Yeah.
Southern Virginia. What's their mascot?
The Highlanders. The Highlanders. Yes, the Highlanders. So yeah. Grew up in Northern Virginia, about 4 hours north outside of DC, and ended up going to Radford University. Yes. Yeah.
And you're still like top 5 in a lot of their categories?
I don't know about that here. I haven't checked it. I got lucky, I think, for a little while. You know what I mean? So I was a soft throwing left-hander. I can admit that. You know what I mean? So they threw me out there as much as they could because I wouldn't hurt my arm.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So you get the call from Jay Johnson.
Yeah.
So what's it like when you step back in this building to rejoin the Tigers?
It was awesome. I remember it, not going too in depth, but this is something that Coach Johnson and I have been talking about for several years, to be honest. When I was at the University of Houston, he approached me about going with him to the University of Arizona, and I didn't. And I will tell you this, is one of those things there, I don't know if regret is the right word, but it was on my mind for a long time, of that not working out. And I fortunately, Coach and I stayed in touch, and this has been, really a work in progress. And he's talked about it even when he got the job here a few years ago, right from the get-go, he and I had talked. So Coach and I talked really the last 3 summers about some opportunities, and it just didn't come to light. And he called me basically about a year ago this time and said, listen, I'm looking at creating this position. What do you think? And of course I said, Coach, you should see the text messages I sent this guy. I was like, I was recruiting it all over again. But I honestly, I'm here, yes, because of so many things, but it starts with Jay Johnson. from afar, we had recruited against each other. I've seen what he's done. But so much of my professional career, and I've been with great people. I've been so incredibly fortunate of all the people I've been around, and you named them, some of them earlier. But I've always can truly tell you that I've wanted to work for Jay. And I just felt like we had so many similarities in the drive and the intensity and just in encompassing all that it was, and so much respect for how he did things. And I really believed that I could help him get and maintain this program to where it is now. And that when he called me, it was a great day.
If you can, give me maybe a peek behind the curtain of what it's like to, we hear about the relentless work ethic. I mean, no one's going to work harder. He comes, I met his father in Omaha last year after they won the championship, and he just didn't blink an eye. He's like, no one's going to outwork my son. And just, you got to love baseball, right? I mean, it's a long season. You play a lot of games. If you don't love it, you're going to distance yourself from it. But just what's it like to work with him day to day?
It's incredible. It's incredible for sure. I mean, you alluded to it. It's his work ethic. I mean, it's his care level. It's his relationships with the players. There's so many things that that make coaches successful, that, in my opinion, that make people the best of the best. Number one is believing in who you are and being yourself. Kids see that and they understand that. And every single player in this baseball program knows that Coach Johnson cares about him, he loves him, and he has their best interest at heart. And when you're a player and you have a coach, a head coach that has your best interest at heart, cares about your future, not just the now. A lot of times I think at this level in collegiate athletics and all that it is, it can be almost transactional in essence, and recruiting in the portal and what can you do for me, so to speak. There's nothing like that here. It's all about the kids and it's all about the players. Every decision that Coach Johnson makes is regarding the players and the relationships that he has with them. I can't tell you how many meetings and conversations that he has with those guys individually to make sure they understand not just where they are as a player, but how much he cares about them and how much he wants to see them become the best. We talk about in recruiting, there's two things that we want guys to come here with. Number one is you want to come here to develop, to put yourself in position to be a major leaguer. And number two, we want you to win and put ourselves in position and you help us win another national championship. And those two things are kind of the driving force, I think, for what he does every single day. But he is absolutely the best of the best. And the work ethic, of course, that's there. But I believe, and I think Coach does too, there's a certain makeup, there's a certain personality, there's a certain intensity that you have to love, not just in baseball, but in every sport in the SEC. Like you have to, you have to look at recruiting like it's Friday night in the SEC. It's not just the games, it's every aspect of it. And certainly he does. But the manner, in which, he treats, so to speak, all of us, it's incredible. Like I can tell you this, I show up and listen, I've worked for a lot of different guys and been around a lot of different people. I literally show up every single morning wanting to do great for him. That's how I feel about him. I want to do great because of how he treats everybody around, how much respect we all have for him.
And one thing I think I learned last year is that he's not a screamer. I guess you can pick your spots maybe, but if a guy's belligerent all the time and screaming and yelling, then the players tune that kind of stuff out. It seems like he has a good approach to maybe get a stern message across when it's needed, but leaders have to be in control of themselves. I think that's something he said. If I'm not in control of myself, how can I expect the players to be?
For sure, 100%. And one of the greatest qualities of coaches is communications, communication ability with the players and with the team, both individually and collectively. And he certainly has that. There's no question. And I think everybody will tell you, the players know that it's going to be a consistent message and a consistent approach. You want to know as a player, what you're going to get every single day, and it's the same. Every single day they know what they're going to get from Coach Johnson and from this coaching staff, and it is a consistent message, a consistent mentality, so to speak. And I believe you're right. You have to have that. You have to be yourself. You have to be secure in who you are because players see through that. They want that, and they know that Coach is true. He is honest. He does care about him, and he is himself. But it is a clear, consistent message every single day. And as a player, you can appreciate that because there's no question marks of what you're going to get.
Yeah. I think that's interesting, too, because I think that he is a Nick Saban freak in terms of he read a lot of books and his strategy. And I think even Nick Saban, as he got into his late 60s, early 70s, says, when I start screaming and yelling and losing control, I make bad decisions maybe, or I say things I shouldn't say. Or
yeah, for sure. Well, you can see him. I mean, like I said, even, every day it's the same. You know what I mean? Regardless of the outcome, every single day in our practice, in our preparation, we all know what we're going to get, and the players know what you're going to get. And that is a consistent, positive belief in who these guys are every single day. And Coach will tell you, as he's alluded to, that's one of the main reasons, and he deserves the success with these players of why this team this year in 24 has done what it's done. By starting 3-12 in the SEC, they've been able to continue to do this trajectory because of his messaging, because of his relationships, because of his care. And that's all you have to do from the outside is say, why is Jay Johnson the best coach in college baseball? There it is. Yes, it was the national championship last year and all of the things he's done prior, but what he has done in essence this year to keep these guys in a positive mentality, to continue the belief, is all a matter of his leadership.
Because there were several times where the average fan could say, okay, it's over. Checkout time.
Sure.
The Friday night game at Alabama, you got a 4-run lead. You got Griffin Herring on the mound, who's been money, and for whatever reason that game slips away and you lose late in the year, where it kind of seemed like there was no margin for error. To go into a final series where people say you got to sweep, you haven't swept anybody all year in the SEC, and you go and you do it against Ole Miss, and then on Tuesday against Georgia, you lose, you're going home.
Right.
And you win that game and you stay all the way to Sunday. You beat Georgia, you beat Kentucky, two teams that are very highly ranked in the RPI, two wild games against South Carolina, and then, 1-run loss to Tennessee, the best team in the country, at least by the RPI and the rankings. So in this sport, obviously you can't go 0 for in February, March, and April. But in the last 2 weeks, you've turned your season around.
There's no doubt, and I think there's a couple of reasons for me, of why that happens. And first of all, you alluded to it. It's because of coaches' relationships with the kids. One of the things that, as a coach, a lot of times it's very easy that when it's not going as well as you want is to do more, to push more, to have them grind more. And it's actually the opposite, in my opinion. And that's one of the things that Coach, obviously it's why he's the best, understands and saw. So many times if you have a team that's doing what you want them to do, they're literally working as hard as they can. The effort is great. They're doing positive. If they're basically doing all the things you ask, but the results are there, it's not about getting on them. It's actually the opposite. You need to get off them, so to speak, and say, listen, it's going to be okay. We're going to be good. When it's going good is actually when you get on them more, so we continue the course. And that's one of the things, I think, the messaging of why this has continued to go the way it has, and why we did what we did the last couple of weeks, because of what Coach told them. But that wasn't just a speech. It's because of prior to that. It's months, it's years for some of these guys in recruiting, because they trust him and they believe in him so much. And it's an example. Somebody asked me the other day, it's very similar to our 08 team in 2014, and they say, yeah, you see the win streak and you see the trajectory of what we did. But there's three kind of common things, I think, in those teams and this. Number one, both of these teams continued an unbelievable work ethic, even when it wasn't going great. Number two, they had a tremendous belief in their abilities. And number three, the team, they were so confident. They knew how good they were. And this team had players that won the national championship. Just go around, Milazzo and, everybody, Tommy, all these guys, they were all part of it. They knew what it took. We just had to get some of the inexperienced guys, get them their experience, so to speak, and just say, hey, listen, stay the course, believe in what we're doing, remain confident, and if you continue to work and you truly believe in your abilities, good things are going to happen. And they knew that was coming from a true, honest place from a coaching staff. And that's the same exact thing as you alluded to, in our 08 team. It's exactly right. We were sitting there, I remember vividly, we were sitting in the office and we were about 500 and we were under 500 in the SEC. And I remember sitting in a staff meeting with all the coaches and I said, hey, look, I don't know, but I can tell you this. I don't know if we'll ever get a better collection of talent on the field in the SEC than we have right now. And I really believe that. I sat there and I said, I don't know if we can get more kids to show up to school, but I know this much, they're working, they believed, and that group in 08 knew how good they were. Even when we weren't winning, they knew we just needed something good to happen. So the Tulane game is what started it. And this team, it's the same thing. I don't think necessarily there's a defining game maybe that turned it, but the defining moments because they believed in what they were doing, and this team has never lost confidence.
Yeah, great stuff. I remember doing a story. It's one of my favorite lighthearted stories with that 08 team. Buzzy, Nick, Chris McGee, Hollander, I got them to all sing Kenny Rogers, When You Put Your Heart Into It.
Yeah.
Because he used to be on the bus, and they would watch videos of the former national championship teams. And the 96 team, the Warren Morris, was Kenny Rogers, When You Put Your Heart Into It.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't want to misspeak here, but I think that's what started the rebirth of the gold jerseys that year. The power in the gold really, it really became a thing that year, wearing gold and the winning streak and everything.
And we wore those golds all the way through the winning streak, you know. Yeah. And I think, you know, even that year is, I don't know if that record is ever, you know, I know it was a record at the time. I don't think it's ever been broken, winning that many games, you know, I mean, in a row, you know, all the way through
the heart of the SEC, by the way, not like at the beginning of the year against some of those non-conference teams. You're sweeping SEC series and then the tournament.
Well, I mean, we're sweeping. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many it was. It had to be at least four series that we swept in a row, and then we didn't lose a game in the tournament. We won the SEC tournament. We didn't lose a game in the regional. We lost the first game of the Super, and then obviously ended up coming back and winning it. So, and this team has so many very similarities, both personnel, personality, dynamics of that team.
That final game against UC Irvine in 08 of the Super Regional goes down in history as one of the craziest, most raucous, amazing nights in Baton Rouge. Yeah. The old Alec box, the final game in the old Alec box, just people like sardines in that place. I had to do a live shot at 6, which is when the game started. I'm like, thanks, guys. The game's starting, but so I'm on the court, and I hear this huge roar behind me. Then I hear another roar. Then I hear another roar. I think you started the game with 3 straight home runs. Dean,
Gibby, and I think Clark, I believe. I know Gibby got one, Blake Dean got one, I think Matt got one, I believe. Yeah. That was oh my gosh, you're right. It gives me goosebumps, you know, thinking about that. I hate to say almost there is one greatest moment, but that definitely is maybe the greatest moment, greatest game maybe. Certainly one of the top 2 of my professional career. I'll remember that the rest of my life, as you alluded to, because of so many of the things that went into it. Really, to be honest with you, kind of where we came from, 07-08, last game at the box, we lost the first game, and then all of a sudden, here we go. I mean, I remember, you couldn't hear yourself. Literally, it was the loudest, greatest probably sporting event I've ever been to. You remember, you couldn't hear yourself ever, but that place was, you know, the fire marshal, I don't know, buddy, he let everybody in because it was the last game at the box. And then we got all those hits, and I remember that I was just sitting there, you know, kind of calling pitches, and I'm like, okay, man, just put up some zeros. Just hang in there, put up some zeros, put up some zeros. I'm thinking that in my head. Come on, because I knew we kept doing it. And fortunately, everybody, that was a great game.
21-7, I think.
Yeah, it was like, once we hit those back-to-back home runs, I mean, it was over. You know, it was over. As long as the pitching coach didn't screw it up and call the wrong pitches, but it was over. Just the momentum had changed, and what an exciting night.
And of course, it's been talked about on the radio many times. Buzzy Hydell had the final home run in the history of the old box there. Deafening noise and crazy scene, and we've talked about it many times. I mean, this is the new box. It's 15 years old now, and the new box is amazing. It's great, but talk to Skip and some others. The old box, the noise was so concentrated on top of you. It was special.
It was special, and that night in particular, you know, Game 3, Super Regional, go to Omaha, the last game in the history of Alex Box. It certainly was special. There's no doubt. But as you alluded to, hey, 15 years in, this is still the greatest college baseball stadium in the country, with the best fans in the country and the best environment in college baseball. No question. Anybody will tell you that. You
can ask Kentucky that last year when they came here for the Super Regional and all that. So in moving into the present, you're a pitching guy. So, you know, last year, all year, it was like, well, they got Paul Skeens and they got nobody else. And then Ty Floyd just really emerged, and Thatcher and some others. Right now, when you've got Gage Jump and Luke Holman as your 1-2, and you've got experienced guys like Ackenhausen and Herring and Thatcher Hurd, who Alex Milazzo said after the SEC tournament, his biggest takeaway was the way Thatcher pitched in Hoover. What about this pitching staff going into the postseason?
I'll tell you, the second half of the season, it's been tremendous. You know, one of the best in the country. And, you know, I'll tell you, we were talking about our staff earlier. I mean, Nate Yeske, our pitching coach, is the best in the business, you know, and he deserves, you know, all the credit for what these guys are doing. You know, Drew Finley, Jamie Tutkill help him every single day. It's a collective effort, but Nate leads the charge, and he's the best pitching coach in the country. And when you look at it, it's these guys, I think the pitching staff, in essence, is very similar, a microcosm of our team. there was a lot of talent, and I think, but the guys had to just get going, so to speak. You look at Gage and Luke, who are at the front end of our rotation. What Gage is doing now is just a matter of time. He just needed the innings. He hadn't pitched a lot because coming off the surgery. Now he's coming into his own. He's going deeper into games. Luke Holman obviously was a starter last year in the SEC, but now he's Coach Eski has kind of fine-tuned his repertoire. He's going in deep into games. And you're right, we just have a lot of tremendous options and different options, out of the pen. Certainly, I think a lot of people would tell you the emergence of Herring and what he has done for us has been huge. He's served a variety of roles, but to have him coming out of the bullpen, the best reliever in the SEC, has been a huge difference, no question, in the success of our team and what he's done. And then Ack, some of the guys you mentioned, Ack, the guy does it all. He starts a game, he closes a game, he does everything, and he's just, hey man, give him the ball and I'm ready to go. And I know Coach Johnson will tell you he can put his head on the pillow at night and feel great that no matter what the situation is, giving the ball to a veteran like that who's done it is tremendous. And and the Guidrys and all of these guys, they've done a tremendous job, and without question is a big part of the success the second half of the year.
You talking about Nate just now. I thought you were describing Jared Bradford for a second. Does it all and starts and saves and all that. A throwback to 2007, Maneri's first year where they won 29 games, which some people told me was a miracle.
Jared Bradford had a lot to do with that. I think the guy pitched in 50 games it seemed like, but he definitely he was. I remember we were kidding about it earlier. I think we started him on Friday, and then you send out the rotation to scouts or to Bill Franquez, in the media, and it was Bradford TBD, and we had to kind of figure it out and all together. So he was the MVP in a lot of ways, for sure.
Maneri told me one time, he said, we went 29 and 26 in my first year, and when we finished fall ball, I thought we were going about 15 and 40. And I was riding home with his dad, and his dad's trying to, Mr. Demi, God rest in peace, Demi Maneri was like, oh, I think you got a decent group. Dad, I don't know. So Jared Bradford, a hero on that team.
Yes.
What about the hitting, the offense? Obviously, Tommy White, Jared Jones, the Bear, and Travinsky has hit 15 home runs, I think, to this point.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about your offense?
I think everybody feels great, and one of the things is that, and again, the trajectory of where we're going. I think we're, as coaches said, we're playing our best baseball as a team, right now in the time when it matters the most. And that's not by luck, that's by design, for the things we talked about earlier and why it's happened. But for sure, you look at it and, you can go around the horn, but just, one person you start with, Milazzo, right? Alex Milazzo, known as, to my opinion, the best defensive catcher in college baseball. His leadership, his toughness, everything he brings. And look at his offense now, what he's doing. He's done a tremendous job. There's an older veteran guy, leader of our team, who has gotten as many big hits as anybody during this stretch run for us. And obviously, you see the improvements, that Jared Jones has done, in hitting the home runs and his plate discipline. All those guys. And Tommy White, you can just go around the horn. And how about the freshmen? The other day, we're starting 3 freshmen in the lineup. I don't know if anybody else can say that, with Brown and Milam and Larson. And those guys have been a big key to our success. Milam has had, obviously, the big home run, but he has been a steady mainstay in our lineup in the second half of the year. Who's kind of a new addition, so to speak, and consistent? Larson has done a tremendous job for us all the way. So I think it's a collective effort of so many people staying the course and believing in what we're doing, and we're clicking on a lot of different cylinders right now. And all of that kind of plays into, I call it kind of a loose toughness, a loose confidence. You can see, I'm sure you and so many people, I've gotten, phone calls and texts from guys we used to coach here, or fans or people that followed, or even colleagues in college baseball, and they've even said, they're like, wow, these last couple of weeks, like, that's LSU, you know? And it's like when Milam hit that home run the other day in the SEC tournament, even some of my coaching colleagues texted me, and it's like, I actually kind of knew something like that was going to happen, the power of LSU. I said, well, good. I said, we did too, but obviously it ended up doing it. It just shows you the respect for this program, but also for what these guys are doing and how they're playing right now.
And then you got a guy like Michael Braswell, who admits, look, he was at South Carolina. They've won national championships. They're great. But he comes here, like they always say, the New York Yankees of college baseball. The lights are a lot brighter. The media coverage is a lot more. And he admitted, and it took me a little while to get used to. I kind of had the yips. sometimes, but he had an awesome SEC tournament for you.
He's been incredible. He's been incredible. And Braz is a great example of, look at, of kind of the highs and lows, so to speak, of the season, And again, how does he get out of that? He played, hit a little bit of a rough patch, just a little bit, early in the year, middle of the year, and now he's doing this. Well, why do you do that? Because you do that if you individually believe in your abilities, but you have a coaching staff that believes in you too. And you don't have to look over your shoulder. You're going to play. We believe in you. Keep working, doing the right things. And it's incredible. And the job that Coach Wanaka has done with him, with his hitting, is incredible. Just look at what he's done, the big hits he's gotten, his ability to drive the ball, and what he's done for us on defense. And really look at all of these guys, and you can take each person individually, whether they're a freshman, right? You talk about Larson and Milan and how they've continued to come, or you take a Braswell, or you take a Luke Holman, or you take a Gage Jump. You take these guys, whether they played in college last year or they were a freshman, where are they now? They're all better.
Yeah.
They're all better. That is development, and that's what this program is known for in this coaching staff.
Has Mark Wanaka ever done an interview before?
I don't know. I don't know. You need to get him on here. You know what I mean?
I was thinking that to myself. Have I ever read any quotes from him or seen him on TV?
He's the best. He was. I'll tell you where you'll find him. You'll find him in the batting cages. That's where he is. He's with our guys all the time, and they love him. They love Coach Wanaka. What he does to those guys every single day. He's the best in the country. At the swing, at the movements. He understands hitting as good as anybody I've ever been around. And you talk about a hitting coach that the guys believe in and the guys trust in the day-to-day. It's Coach Chief, no question. There
was a great moment when Milam hit the walk-off. I think Wanaka grabbed his batting helmet and he spiked it, maybe with two hands or something. The fans were loving that. It's like the helmet spiking.
That was one of the greatest moments of this season. There's no question. If you ask any player, write down a list of a top two. Coach Wanaka's spiking of his helmet might be in the one hole. Because on every replay, right, it was right there. Because when the home runs hit, you can see it. So everybody said it. We were kidding on the bus after the game how many text messages he got on that, from his friends and everybody. So that was awesome. You don't see, kind of the emotion of that really out of anybody, but even out of, Coach Wanaka, to see that, you can see how happy he was for Stephen.
Great conversation with Terry Rooney. A couple more things. I'll let you go. I know you got a lot of preparation here coming up. You talked about the recruiting aspect of things. How has it changed? Because obviously, in the Skip Bertman days, you're selling the dream, and really you're lucky to play here, not the other way around. Now, I think you've still got the Alex Malazzos and the kids, the local kids who will, they'll walk across broken glass to play here. But then I don't know if it's the same in baseball as what you're hearing in football, where guys aren't interested in tradition or winning, or they want money. Are you still selling? I would think this place more than any other could sell the dream. What's on your hat there? The LSU, Alec Box Stadium National Championships. Well, what are the recruiting dynamics today?
LSU baseball is still the best #1 program in college baseball. Every year your team is different. Last year we won the national championship with that team. But there's a difference between a team and a program. A team is every single year. A program is all-encompassing. Last year, we had the #1 team in the country. We've always had the #1 program in the country. That's the way you look at it. And, not a lot, I guess, in what LSU offers, it's still the same. It's the best of the best that there is in the country, and the resources and the environment and the tradition. As Coach Johnson calls it, this is a training ground for Major League Baseball. There's two things that I think all the best players in the country want. They want to go somewhere they can develop to become a major leaguer, and they want to go somewhere they're going to win and put themselves to go to Omaha and win a national championship. This is the place to be for that. I think the individual dynamics of recruiting, to be honest, I don't think it's changed really that much. Yes, you have the portal, but even, up till a couple years ago, you still had transfers, just a little bit different dynamic. I don't think a lot of it has changed, to be honest. I still think it's about relationships. I still think it's about evaluating. I still think it's about kids understanding, not only what we can do for them, but what they can do for us, and the why of why we want them here, so to speak. So a lot of the things, I know there certainly are things that change year to year, and we're in interesting times right now in collegiate athletics, but it still comes down to relationships. It still comes down to work ethic. It still comes down to persistence and recruiting the right players. And I think I think that is a strength of this staff, and it's obviously a strength of Coach Johnson's in the history of great players and he's had in recruiting. I say it all the time, kids understand it. It's easy to go out there and just sell a logo, so to speak. It's much more than that. I mean, it's about the player, it's about evaluating them, and it's about recruiting them. And I think that this staff is the best in the country at doing that, and that's why the best players in the country come here.
And finally, these are goofy things that only somebody like me talks about. You came here about the same time Sean Payton did, the exact same time. I've always found that you look like Sean Payton. Am I the only weirdo who thinks that?
I'll be honest with you. I've had several people tell me that, especially like when I've had a lot of people tell me that. And when I recruit, I usually wear a visor. Okay, I really do. Not for Coach Payton, but I mean, I just do. That's kind of like my gig. When I'm out recruiting, I've always worn visors, and I have a lot of people that tell me that. I swear to you. A good friend of mine, Bo Lowry, right? Everybody, all LSU fans know Bo, and is working now. For Sean Payton, and Bo was here. Obviously my first time, and we've always stayed in touch, and obviously he's with Coach in the Broncos now, so he knows it well too. But that is maybe a celebrity comp, which I'll take with. I appreciate that. Listen, that guy's, he's done a heck of a job, but a lot of people have said that for sure.
Both hired in 2006.
Okay.
Yeah, right. The summer of 06, Mainieri was named the coach, and then beginning of 2006, Sean Payton.
I didn't know that timeline, though, that's when he was hired, too. Yeah, for sure. But a lot of people, have said that for sure.
And in 2009, the summer, you win the national title, and then the following fall for the Saints into 2010, they won the Super Bowl. So
love that. Let's go.
Coach Mainieri had a picture, I think it was from Mardi Gras, and they were both, Peyton and Mainieri, both were like kings at a Mardi Gras parade with their trophies.
Right.
So that was good stuff. I really enjoyed this conversation. You're great, Terry. Thanks for the time.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me on.
You bet.
Appreciate it.